Hello, my name is Ari. Welcome back to my podcast, Surrounded by Addicts. Here I share my perspective on alcohol and drug addiction as someone who comes from a family of addicts. I share my personal stories, lessons I learned along the way, and take a look at what the research says about addiction. I am not a doctor or a specialist of any sort, simply a woman who has healed from trauma and wants to talk about it. Please enjoy the following episode. How I referenced before that Jim locking me outside wasn't going to be the last time when it was cold out. Well, he did it again. And it was kind of the same situation of when he chased friend A around the house. This time, I don't remember why my grandmother was out. I'm pretty sure it was just for work. And again, my mom, it wasn't her weekend. Pretty sure this was, again, like a Thursday or a Friday. I didn't have to worry about school, which was perfect timing for him because it would be okay for me to be up late if it got to that point. He was very careful to make sure that he didn't fuck with me too much when he knew I had school. Because I was always, like I again referenced earlier, I was always really good at school. School was one of the things I kept consistent with the whole time. So I think he did it on purpose to never really do too much to me when it came down to possibly affecting my school performance. So, kind of the same situation. Uncle and aunt are just probably out doing their own thing. My grandmother is probably on her way home from work / working late, whatever. We're home alone. Because I took the bus, typically the bus driver wasn't allowed to let me off at my stop unless they saw at least one car at the house to prove that there was an adult home. Well, when I got home, even though there was a car in the driveway, it was actually my uncle's broken down car that didn't work. So when I first got home this day, nobody was home. It was just me. I knew my routine. I would go up the set of stairs. I would sit my little ass at the dining room table facing the stairs. Usually I would get like a snack of some sort, but I would just do my homework. I did that pretty much every single day when I lived in my grandmother's house. So I do that as normal. I don't know how long until I heard the front door open, but I heard the front door open and I didn't hear anybody come upstairs. So I wasn't sure who it was, but I didn't really care to say anything because it was common, it wasn't a big deal to hear the front door open. So I didn't really care to make my presence known or to ask who it was. So I hear the person go downstairs, not say anything. So I keep doing what I'm doing. Eventually, I hear someone go up the stairs again, and I see that it's Jim. He doesn't say a word to me, completely ignores me, walks right by me, goes into the kitchen. I'm pretty sure I heard him sit down on the couch. Time passes, whatever. He walks by me again. Try to say hi to him. Doesn't say anything to me, just ignores me. I say, okay. So I continue to do what I'm doing. He goes back downstairs. A little bit later, he comes back upstairs. He looks at me. He is like, where have you been? And I looked up at him and I was like, what do you mean? He was like, where have you been? I've been looking all over for you. I've been looking for my daughter. And I said, I'm right here. I am your daughter and I've been here. He was like, no, I've been looking for my daughter. Where were you? And I said, I've been here the whole time. And we went back and forth for a little bit. Him just saying that he didn't know where I was and me telling him that I was here the whole time. And this was a pretty calm conversation. I wasn't really giving him attitude that I can remember. I do have a attitude, but I don't remember giving him an attitude at this time. He was talking to me seemingly level-headed. I was kind of weirded out by him not knowing that he walked by me, but by this time I was starting to understand what being drunk was, so I was kind of already assuming that's what that was. Like, I knew in second grade that he was off, but I got to see visuals. Like, I would see nips a lot and kind of connected that to behavior, and then seeing how my uncle was, that also kind of helped with the drunk perspective. So I already had a feeling that he was drinking, but I was still really confused by the whole not knowing I was there. And then out of nowhere, he just snaps and he just starts yelling at me that I'm lying to him. I don't remember exactly what he said, but just basically he was calling me a liar, saying that there was no way I was here the whole time. And naturally I retaliate and I start yelling back like I was here the whole time. I don't remember either exactly what I said, but I remember I started yelling too. Eventually he just told me to go to my room and to clean up. So I got really mad at him. So I did. I left. I went to my bedroom, which was if you're in the dining room, if you go straight past the stairs, I was the first bedroom on the right. So I'm right there. I'm the first bedroom that you get to. I go into my bedroom. I have the door cracked open, but for the most part it's closed. And for the most part, my grandmother did my laundry, including folding it. The only thing I was responsible for was actually putting it in my drawers. So that's what I was doing. I had like one or two laundry baskets of folded clothes that were from my grandmother and brought it over near my bed. I either like sat on or near my bed and I started to put the clothes away in my dresser drawers. Jim barges open the door. Like, it slams really hard. My bedroom door swung open to block my closet door. And it hit the door, my closet door, so hard that my bedroom door actually bounced closed again. And he just starts yelling at me about I'm lying about doing homework. I'm lying about when I got home. I'm lying about all these things. And I'm telling him that he can look at my homework, that I did do it, and I'm not lying, and I've told him to look at the clock, and he would know that I got dropped off from the bus when I got dropped off from the bus at the same time every day. He didn't, either he was just really fucking with me, or he was just really out of it, or he just didn't care, but he was just yelling at me that I was lying. He comes over and he sees the clothes that I'm currently putting in my dresser, and he says that they're not folded. He says it's a mess and I need to redo it. And I point out to him and I point to the laundry basket that my grandmother folded these. So how is it messy when I'm putting them away exactly how they are? And he gets mad, saying that that's not how he taught me to fold clothes. I should do better. It's just a shit show. I'm like living in a pigsty, all these things. So he dumps out every single one of my drawers. So now I have my clothes everywhere and my drawers are just stacked on top of each other. So I'm surrounded by clothes and he tells me to pick everything up, to redo all of it. So I yell at him, something, I don't remember, but he leaves. So I start to clean up my room. I maybe folded like 4 items before he told me to come with him. So I should mention that he told me to change into pajamas. I usually did take off like my first layer of clothes. I usually wore like a tank top underneath my shirt, but I usually kept on my school pants. I didn't wear a uniform, but I just kept on the pants that I wore to school. He told me to change into pajamas, and I asked why. He just told me to do it, so I changed into pajamas. I kept my normal tank top on, and have to note that it's still cold. It's not snowing yet, but it's cold enough where when you breathe, you could see your breath in the air. It's freezing. Not snowing yet, but it's getting there. It's probably about November-ish if I had to guess. So he tells me to come with him. So we go to the side door and he tells me to go outside and stand at the bottom of the stairs. So I do. And I go down the stairs. Once I reach the bottom, I'm standing on the asphalt with no socks or shoes on because he didn't allow me to put on either of those. And I don't have a jacket on. It's just me in a tank top and pajama pants. He sits at the top of the stairs and just looks at me. And he tells me that as punishment, I'm not allowed to go back inside and that I have to stand outside until he tells me I can go back inside. So at first I didn't really believe him. I didn't really think he would go through with it, honestly. So at first I'm kind of cocky and I'm just standing there. Anytime I try to say anything, he would tell me to shut up. He tells me that he's not going to allow me to sit down. He's not going to allow me to eat, drink, go to the bathroom, any of that. I am going to be outside for however long, and he was going to stand at the stairs, sit down at the stairs and watch me. And that's exactly what that crazy son of a bitch did. It's not funny, but, like, it's just crazy. I don't know. He sat at the top of the stairs for God knows how long. I don't remember how long we were outside for. We were outside for fucking hours. I kid you not, because it started to get darker and darker the longer we were out there. So I could only imagine how many hours we were out there for. I'm standing for some time, however much time. I'm fucking shivering. He kind of laughs and said, like, oh, you're cold, huh? And he, like, smirks, but in that, like, asshole way. And I shake my head no. And he's like, good, because you're not going inside anyways. He tells me that he has to use the bathroom, but he's not going to go inside to go pee. He said this to me. He said that he's going to go pee at the back of the house, so he'll be able to hear if I try to go inside. Either he'll hear the gate to get to the front door, or he'll hear me use the stairs to get to the side door. So I shit you not, he walked down the stairs. He walked right by me. He went to the back of the house, and I could hear him pee. It was like a jet stream. It was loud as shit. And I was in disbelief that that crazy motherfucker really wanted to make sure that he would know if I moved a muscle. So I'm standing there listening to him pee. He comes back from being behind the house, goes back up to the porch, sits down, and just has that shit-eating grin on his face like he won. Like he knew he got one over me. Eventually, I don't remember if he did go inside of the house or if he found these, like, underneath our staircase, because the side porch underneath the stairs was kind of like a mini storage area, or if it was just in the back of the house. I don't know where he got these from. But he found sponges. I don't know why he gave these to me, but he told me that he wanted me to clean the house. So he throws me sponges that are soaking wet. So this is where I'm thinking maybe he went inside the house. I just really can't remember, but he must have. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he had to have gone inside the house because I do remember him getting food. So he went inside the house eventually, though I could see him, like, glaring out the kitchen window to make sure I was still there. And I was kind of in the headspace of I'm going to prove him wrong, that I'm not going to let this bother me. So I was a lot less afraid than the friend A incident. This was me trying to prove that I wasn't going to let him get to me, I guess, because this incident happened after the friend A incident. So I was purposely trying to be ballsy. So I just stood outside as he was doing his thing. He eventually tosses me sponges that are soaking wet. And of course, I feel the bite of the cold air hitting me. And he tells me to clean the house. So that's what I do. I start gently scrubbing the house with sponges. And the whole time he's yelling at me harder, faster, trying to tell me where, all this shit. But he's not actually getting up from his spot. This is when it's starting to get dark out. It was already getting dark out, but now it's kind of hard to see what exactly is going on. Because the house was a dark green, I believe. My grandmother painted the house, so I'm pretty sure it was like a dark green with like a little bit of blue in it. So it's getting hard to see the house. Well, finally, my grandmother comes home, and what Jim kind of forgot is that the driveway aligns with the side of the house. So she saw me outside right away. So I immediately drop the sponges and I run over to her and I give her the biggest hug and I start crying. She's freaking out because I am soaking wet with no jacket on, no shoes on, no socks on, and it's kind of obvious that I've been standing outside for a bit. She told me to go inside. I know that she was yelling at Jim for a bit. I don't know what she said because I was just so happy that she got home and I knew that I could get away with taking a shower. I remember I ran to the kitchen. I know I grabbed like a snack that was there. I just don't remember what the snack was, but I remember like eating something and starting the shower right away. I had cuts and like really deep indents on my feet from standing on the gravel slash like sand-ish area because we had a asphalt path that led from the driveway to the front porch, but there was always like a little rock sand pit from just people walking on like the grass and then walking back on the asphalt. So I was standing on a bunch of random shit. I was probably standing on glass and didn't even realize it. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I know that they were outside for a little bit, but that was definitely a moment that changed. That was another moment. There's been a lot of moments that changed my brain chemistry and how I feel about my father, and that was one of a pivotal moment for me because I proved to myself that I could put up with his bullshit, his games. Sometime soon, eventually, Jim is forced to go to rehab. I do not remember what the catalyst was. I don't know if it was this event specifically, but other than this event, like Jim was getting really bad at hiding nips everywhere. He was getting in trouble for leaving nips in his sister's room, so my aunt's room. Soon after, I told my grandmother and I showed her that Jim had a bag of nips in my room that were empty, like in like plastic, like Walmart bags. So could have been multiple things that caused this, but eventually she forced him to go to rehab, and for 9 blissful months, I am just living at my grandmother's house with my aunt and my uncle and whoever else may be coming over without Jim. Now, I did sadly still have to call him because he would not leave me alone. Of course, on the phone, he sounded all happy and like he missed me and all this bullshit that probably wasn't true. Or if it was true, it was just because he was like still secretly getting drunk or something. So 9 months go by, and my aunt is pregnant with her first kid. and it's getting towards the end of my third grade year. So I spent majority of my third grade year, about 9-ish months, partly into the summer, without gym. But like I said, my aunt is pregnant, and they were going to use my room for the baby. So that meant that I had to move out, which was perfect timing because that's when Jim's rehab program was done. So I went to his rehab graduation. I do want to say that I did see him maybe like a handful of times in person, and it was because his rehab center was in the same town that my mom's mother, my Nana, lived at. So I think either I was scheduled to see him and they just aided in that, or he would beg my mom to see me and she aided with that. Either way, I don't really remember why I was forced to see him, but I did see him a handful of times throughout his rehab, but for the most part it was just phone calls. So anyways, I go to his rehab graduation. I don't know if that's like what you're supposed to call it, but that's basically what it was. And, his name got called. He got a little diploma of completing the program, da da da. That motherfucker took a shot right outside the rehab center when everything was done. And I remember it so vividly. I remember I felt like I knew I got duped. Like I knew as soon as I saw that, I was like happy that in my head that he got sober. And then as soon as I saw him like tip his head back in that way, I was like, wait a minute, like what the fuck's going on here? Like I remember my emotion change in that moment because I knew what he did was fucking wrong and defeated the whole point of this program that he's in. So I do believe that I tried to tell my grandmother that he wasn't sober. I can't remember for sure if I did, but I want to say I did try. But either way, he gets an apartment that's maybe a 10-15 minute drive away from where my grandmother lives at the time. She still lives in the same spot. So we're like 10-15 minutes away from my grandmother's house. Same town, but I did have to go to a different school. We lived in a big ass apartment complex with like multiple floors, multiple apartments per floor, all that. It was so big that there was one giant main elevator, and then at either side of the building there was staircases. This apartment complex was conveniently located right next to the school that I was going to, so I didn't really need to walk or take the bus to school because it was literally in my backyard. This was Jim's and I's first time living alone together. It was just me and him in this apartment. And it fucking sucked. It was not a fun time. We lived there together from June, I believe. May, June-ish. The latest July of 2012 to October 2012. So May through October, maybe like 5 months, at the latest July, so like 3 months. We weren't living together for that long. Anyways, so it starts and it's summertime. Are we surprised that he didn't do a goddamn thing, really? No, because third time is not the charm. Third time living with him, same bullshit, except instead of another adult picking up the slack, it was me picking up the slack. We got into so many battles about chores because that dickhead wanted me to do everything. He would force me to vacuum the same spot on the carpet over and over again until it was clean to his liking. You know how people can mow their lawns so that their grass has like a pattern to it, like a diagonal pattern or striped pattern? He wanted me to do that with the carpet. And we got into fights about every single chore. The vacuum one was the most heated one because I remember either trying to throw the vacuum or like I kind of like slammed it against the wall, and I thought he was gonna like do something, but he ended up just like kind of death staring me and telling me to go to my room. But this was when I started to have more physical outbursts because, I'm older, getting bigger, and getting sick of his bullshit. So we are arguing constantly about chores, how to get them done, all this. Very frequently would he like make me do the laundry by myself. The way that we had a laundry, like a little mini laundry unit in our apartment complex. And the washers were the standard load from the top washers, but the dryers were stacked one on top of the other. So there was two rows of dryers, the low level dryers that I could reach, and then the dryers up top that I couldn't reach. And he would frequently make me drag all the laundry by myself, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but he would stuff these gigantic bags filled with clothes and never grab one for me. I always had to drag it because I was not big enough or strong enough to lift that by myself. And he knew that. He would grab the tinier bag of laundry and make sure that I always got the heavier bag. Second of all, he would always leave me in the laundry room. He would be with me at first, like he would start to like load a washer or take clothes out of the dryer. But usually when I wasn't looking, he would just leave. So I would have to do the rest of the laundry by myself. And depending on what dryers were available, I had to wait for somebody else to come to the laundry room so that they could help me load or unload the dryer if I couldn't reach it. Same thing with if I couldn't reach something that was in the washer, I would need to wait for somebody to come down and help me because he left me. And that was every single fucking time I had to do the laundry. So, since it's during the summer, I was able to be out of the house for a long time. And because I lived right near my school, I would go to the school's playground all the time. And one of the only benefits of Jim being a drunk was that normally he was passed out all day and would leave me the fuck alone. Truly that was probably the highlight of him being a drunk, was I got to have the most freedom when I was outside of the house, because he had this rule where he would want me to check in. He would want me to leave the park in like regular intervals, go all the way back up to our apartment and check in, basically to make sure that I was alive. But I truly think it was to make sure that he was alive because he was always passed out. Eventually I learned that after I checked in with him for the first time that day, he was usually too passed out, too drunk, and eventually would pass out, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I had a friend in the building. I would usually hang out with this friend whenever I could, and even my friends started to catch on that Jim was always like laid up, passed out on the couch, because my friend was a little bit more anxious about like lying or kind of being sneaky. And I remember proving to him one day that Jim wouldn't care how long I'm out for, because my friend had a phone, I didn't, so he would just text his parents. I couldn't do that. And I remember like, oh, I'll prove to you that Jim's passed out. And I went up to our apartment shortly after I already checked in, and I open it and I let my friend see, and sure as shit, Jim is passed out. Now, don't ask me why. I didn't really connect how badly he was drinking. Like, I knew that he was, but I didn't have any proof of it. I just could tell by his behavior that he was acting strange. But this is important to note for a later period. But I didn't really understand how much he was drinking at this time. I just knew that something was up, but I didn't know how severe it was. So, anyways, I go through the whole summer basically fighting with Jim and trying to stay out of the house for as long as I possibly can. School rolls around, and Jim's behavior gets a lot more erratic. This was probably the second scariest night of my life for a different reason. I believe this is already in the school year, very beginning of the school year. And I don't remember if I had school or not the next day. I think even if I had school, I think I stayed home. But one night, me and him were getting along semi well, and we were sitting on the couches in the living room. We had our own couch. I had one, he had the other, and I forget what was on the TV, but something that he liked was on. And he just started having really vivid and random hallucinations. And he was freaking me the fuck out with them. He was saying how there was lizards and spiders on the wall, that there was jungle animals on the wall, and they were looking like they were gonna attack us. And he was standing in the middle of the living room and just looking at all like the three walls, because our living room is next to our kind of dining room-ish area. So he was mainly looking at three walls. And every time he moved his head, he would just get more and more scared. At first I was kind of calm, like I don't know what I was thinking. I just didn't know fully what he was doing. But every time he moves his eyes, every time he moves his head, the more scared he gets, and the more he's visually like panicking. Like I can see him panicking. Suddenly he starts like looking at the TV and saying that it's flooding and that it's like a waterfall coming from the bottom of our TV. Our TV was on a little TV stand, and it was currently on, and he yelled at me to turn it off. So I did. I grabbed the remote and I turned it off. And the whole time I'm looking for the remote, and as I'm turning it off, he's saying that it's dripping wet, that electric fire is going to start, that there's just water just pouring out of the TV. And he looks at me kind of like he's asking me with his eyes for confirmation that what he is saying is happening. And I just like shake my head no, because again, I'm always just like on like a piece of furniture in fear. Like that's the only thing I knew how to do, was to stay away from him and like stay curled up. So I'm on the couch, knees to chest, just like shaking my head no, like I don't like, and I'm just kind of saying it quietly, like I'm not matching his tone, and I'm like, no, like there's nothing there, like what are you talking about, what is wrong, like I'm pointing at the TV and I'm telling him that I don't see anything. And he is still very panicked. He is not talking clearly. He is just completely all over the place. He is not making any sense. He yells and looks over at one of the outlets that are on the same wall that the TV is plugged into, saying that there's green ooze seeping out of the outlets. And he runs over to the outlet that he was pointing to. He gets on his knees and he starts rubbing the outlet, like the little slots where you plug in things. Like he's rubbing that with his fingers, and he's telling me that there's green ooze coming out of the outlet. He's rubbing his fingers together like he is feeling something. Like that he's making that motion with his fingers like he can actually feel something. And I tell him in a kind of panic, shaky voice, quietly, like not matching his tone again, that there's nothing there. And he's just, no, no, like there's there's water coming out of the TV, there's green ooze coming out of the outlet. And then he went from kind of curled up in a ball on the floor looking at his hands to just like jerking his whole body in my direction, not walking towards me, but he goes from kind of his side profile is what I see to just jerking to where he's facing me. He's still on the floor, he's still near the outlet, but now he's completely facing me, and his eyes, I don't think he was on coke, but that's the best way I can describe kind of what his eyes looked like how wide they were, and I only could see the white in his eyes. And I was always taught that if you can see a lot of white in somebody's eyes, you need to get the fuck away from them. And that's I think like the natural survival instinct that I had. Like I needed to get away from him. And he told me, he was like, "Is your alarm clock plugged in?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Your alarm clock, the one that you use for school, is it plugged in?" And I shake my head yes. And he's like, "Unplug it, unplug everything. Like nothing can be plugged in. The ooze from the outlets are there. It's gonna, do something." I don't remember what he said it would do, but he was freaking out about our outlets while also still freaking out about the TV. So I run. I fucking hated running. I was a fat son of a bitch kid. I sprinted into my bedroom and I unplugged my outlet and I unplugged the little mini TV I had. And as I was coming back to the living room, I was unplugging appliances in the kitchen when I passed. I was unplugging things in the bathroom if they were plugged in. I was unplugging everything because the whole time as I was running around, he was screaming at me to unplug everything. Do not ask me how. Nobody, not a single neighbor did anything. I feel like he was being so fucking loud and just nobody cared. Um, I don't know. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to say that my situation was similar, but it reminds me of the Jeffrey Dahmer case, how like people in his apartment complex like could hear these crazy things and could smell like the horrible smells, but yet nobody really did anything. That's kind of the similar vibe that was going on. Like I felt like it was so obviously chaotic in our apartment. How the fuck did nobody like say anything or call the police? Not saying that my situation was worse than the victims. I'm not trying to go there. I'm just saying the environment of our apartment, the vibes that were going on, how loud we were, how chaotic it was. It reminds me of listening to the Jeffrey Dahmer case and hearing how people would describe what they heard and what they smelled, and yet they didn't do anything about it. They didn't call the cops on Dahmer. Like, that's kind of what the best way I can describe how insane Jim was acting. Like, how did nobody fucking do anything? I don't know. But he was hooting and hollering, screaming his ass off about all these things. Like, he would go from the green ooze coming out of the outlets to the water coming out of the TV to the animals on the wall. Like, he was just recycling the same things over and over again. It was always those three things, and he was just absolutely going crazy. I had no idea what the fuck to do. I started crying. I had no idea what more I could do. I felt so trapped cuz no one was coming. Like no one was coming to save me. Like I was stuck with this. So after I was done unplugging everything, I ran back onto the couch. I sat down on the couch. I wrapped myself in whatever blanket was nearby. And I don't know what caused my dad to call his friend, but he called his friend that lived in the same apartment complex that we did. He lived on a different floor. And for some reason, he had like a moment of clarity where he was actually talking in coherent sentences. Before this phone call, it was almost baby babble, minus the water TV, green ooze outlet, animal walls. Every other word was just like gibberish. But during that phone call, it was so clear. Like, he told his friend, like, I need you to come down here. My daughter is crying. My daughter is freaking out. And he was describing to his friend the exact things that he was freaking out about. Like, he told his friend about the water coming out of the TV. I was right there as he was describing the green ooze and the animals on the walls. His friend comes down. The apartment door was unlocked. Like, it was opened. I don't know if the door was cracked open, but his friend didn't need to be let in. He just walked in. He sees me on the couch and he's telling me it's gonna be okay. He goes over to the TV. He gets on his hands and knees and he starts to pet the carpet that's right near the TV. And he looks up at my father and goes, Jimmy, it's okay. It's dry. You need to calm down. He goes over to the outlet that Jim was freaking out about. Jim has basically been standing in the same part of the living room this whole entire time. Like, the only thing he really did was kind of pivot in like different directions, but he didn't really do much else. He was just kind of there. I was the one that was running around unplugging things as he was freaking out. So Jim is standing in the same spot that he's been standing in, and his friend does the same thing, touches the outlet and like drags his finger on the wall and says, see, there's no green ooze. You can calm down. It's okay. There's no animals. You're okay. Eventually, the friend is able to calm Jim down enough where Jim kind of just like snaps out of it. I was honestly kind of annoyed because like he made it seem like I was the crazy one because I was the one crying. Like I don't know. It was like such a 180 from how Jim was acting prior to his friend coming over compared to how he was acting after his friend was there. Like, then he kind of turned it on me like I was the one that was freaking out, when in reality I was just like breaking down from however long I was witnessing my dad go through like a mental break. So eventually I have two of them now. I have Jim and I have his friend telling me that it's gonna be okay. Like, they're calming me down, even though it was Jim. So I don't know if Jim really had like a schizophrenic thing, because I was told later after he died that he did have schizophrenia. So I don't know if this was that. I don't know if this was like a alcohol induced moment. He also did have diabetes, and anybody that knows anything about alcohol and diabetes, them two don't go together. So I don't know if it was that. I don't know if he was straight up just fucking with me and he just needed to get me. I don't know. I have no idea what it was. I want to lean towards the side of a schizophrenic thing, but that was the first time that I can remember anything like that happening. So I don't know if I just can't remember any other schizophrenic moments, or the only other explanation was like that was his only way to really get me. Like, because I proved to him that whatever tough shit he was gonna do, I could handle it. So the only other like way he had to fuck with me was to just act insane, and so I don't know. But now I have two of them telling me to calm down, it's gonna be okay. It didn't fucking feel like it was gonna be okay. I am not gonna lie, they did not help. I eventually do. I breathe. as normal and I get to a spot where I'm feeling better. Even my poor cat. I had a cat at the time. R.I.P. Smokey. I have no idea what happened to him after I moved, but even my cat was hiding. I couldn't find my cat for the life of me. I was trying to find my emotional support cat, and he was gone. He disappeared. He was hiding somewhere. Eventually, things calmed down. I don't remember when exactly that was. It was definitely when I was in school, so I'm assuming it was early-ish September. The next thing that happened was, like I referenced a little bit earlier, I knew that when me and Jim lived alone together when I was in 4th grade, that he was still doing something. I just didn't know the gravity of the situation. Well, this night is when I discovered the gravity of the situation. So it was definitely a weekend because I fell asleep in the living room watching TV. Jim and I both did. So, and he would not have allowed me to fall asleep in the living room if I didn't have, if I had school the next day. So I know that this was really late. He and I got along for the most part. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, don't know what time it was, but the TV was on. And I didn't want to leave it on all night. So I was looking for the remote to turn it off. And I didn't want to bother trying to turn on the light or anything like that. So I was just kind of looking for it the best I could with the light that the TV provided. I looked on the coffee table we had. I tried to look like where Jim was laying. Like I wasn't sure if it was on him or under him or around him. Looked where I was asleep to see if I had it maybe. I look under the couch that I was sleeping on, couldn't find it. Now, I'm still like scared of Jim, and I was especially scared to like wake him up because I didn't know what would happen if I woke him up. Very nervous to disturb the sleeping bear, you could say. So, I gently moved the coffee table so I would have more room to search underneath the couch that he's on, that he always sat on. The couch that he's sleeping on is his couch. I can't see underneath the couch, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to. So I am just laying down, stomach on the floor, kind of just flailing my arm around, waiting to feel a remote. I feel something. I pull it out, and it's an empty bottle of Bacardi. I know I'm not supposed to find it, clearly, because it's under the couch. I kind of get scared, so I push it back underneath the couch, and I hear a cling and a clang. So naturally, I try to find what made that sound. It didn't sound like it hit the wall, so I, partially get underneath the couch just enough so I could reach more towards the back. Pull out a bottle of Bacardi, empty. Could have been the same one. I push it to my right side. Grab another one. It's another empty bottle of Bacardi. And it just kept going. It was like that magic trick where the magician pulls like handkerchiefs endlessly out of a hat. That's kind of like what it was like. It was just endless bottles of Bacardi from underneath the goddamn couch. So I don't know how many bottles I pulled out, but every single one I pulled out, the more fucking scared I got, because the more I was like, oh shit, if he sees me with all these bottles, he's gonna know that something is wrong. So I tried to scatter the bottles as best as I could, considering it was random. Tried to push them back, because that's where most of them were. Most of them were at the very back. And I get up, and of course I see that stupid fucking remote at the top of the couch, like where your best, where your back lays, that's where that is. Turn off the TV and I go to bed. A very important detail that I should have mentioned that played a role into why it was hard for me to talk to people. Frequently, Jim would ground me from seeing my mom on her weekends or ground me from talking to my mom. This is very important because during the whole time I live alone with Jim, I basically was grounded from seeing my mom and talking to her on the phone. He did this too when I was in second and third grade, which I should have mentioned sooner, but that was his thing as well. That was another form of, in my opinion, emotional abuse, because what he would do was he would tell my mom that we have like a birthday or something to go to on her weekend, when in reality he just didn't want me to see her. And he would just tell me that my mom was busy or couldn't see me or whatever, and I would have to wait to see her again. And usually he made me wait another 2 weeks because I was supposed to see my mom every 2 weeks. So sometimes I would go almost a month without seeing my mom. And then when he was around, not when he was in rehab. When he was in rehab, I was on the phone with my mom all the time. But when he was around me, he would do the same thing where he would just never let me call my mom, or if he did let me call my mom, he was like right there. So should have mentioned that sooner. He did that all throughout my second grade year, my third grade year when he was living with me, and he was also still doing it in my fourth grade year. So a lot of the things that he did, I didn't really get a good chance to talk to my mom about it when it happened, and sometimes too much time would pass by and I would be nervous to tell her. So I kept a lot of things away from my mom because it just took so long for me to be able to talk to her. And I truly just wanted to enjoy my weekend with my mom. So I really, by the time things passed, I just didn't mention them to her. I did tell her all of these things once he died and I lived with my mom, but she didn't know that a lot of these things were happening at the time. And I myself didn't even know that he was grounding me from seeing her or from talking to her until me and her would talk about my time living with him, and we kind of connected the dots on our own that he was doing that. So, anyways, I didn't get to tell my mom about the hallucination event that happened, and I didn't get to tell my mom about all the Bacardi bottles that I found underneath the couch. So it's getting closer to my birthday. My birthday is in October. So right before my birthday, I want to say like maybe 2 weeks before my birthday, this was around the time the Bacardi bottle thing happened. So it's in September. So the hallucination thing happened at the beginning of September around that time. And then I'm finding the Bacardi bottles a couple weeks later. And that's when I kind of hit my breaking point, and I get really scared one day for dismissal, thinking about having to go home to gym. And I break down and I tell my teacher everything. Like, I tell that poor woman my whole life story. I told her about him molesting me. I told her about how he was still drinking. I mentioned some key moments that happened that I've gone and I've spoken about here. I mentioned some of those things to her. I basically begged her to not send me home with him. So, because of this, I get to be with the principal. It was a very small school, so there was not a lot of staff members that could handle these types of situations. So, I speak with the principal, and my teacher is dealing with Jim, who was waiting outside to dismiss me. Long story short, they still let me go home with him. I have no fucking clue why. I remember being petrified when I realized that they were still going to let that man take me home. And it was coming up to my birthday, so he was in a decent mood, but I wasn't sure how mad he was going to be that I basically told my teachers everything. Yeah, I don't know why they let me go. I don't know. I was very clearly scared, and I was very clearly like not happy about my situation, and like I said, I'm pretty sure I mentioned the Bacardi thing. Like, I'm pretty sure I told them that he was a very bad drinker. Mandatory report in my ass. I don't know why they let me go, but they did. So I get released to go with him. I'm like 2 hours late out of school because of it. Nervous as fuck that he is gonna do something because why wouldn't he? Well, he doesn't. He actually acts normal, which was foreshadowing that he was acting normal. He actually throws me a birthday party that following weekend. It was a very weird birthday party because most of the people that attended I did not know and were mainly his friends. Not the friends that you would expect, just like middle-aged women friends that I didn't even know that he spoke to, with kids that were way too young for me to be playing with. Really odd birthday party, but he tried to make it work. He ordered Chinese food, he got me a cake, and it was okay. But that weekend, he threw me a birthday party. Now, the weekend of my actual birthday, I think my birthday that year was like a Thursday or something. But that year was the year that Hotel Transylvania came out in theaters. And me, my younger cousin, my cousin's mom, so my aunt, my other aunt, and my grandmother we were all gonna go to the movie theaters on that weekend. So that Friday, I was gonna get picked up, and I'm pretty sure I was supposed to go back home on Saturday. So I get picked. On Friday, I come back home from school, and when I come home from school, Jim is out of it. Jim is actually basically just like knocked out in his bed. Normally he was on the couch, but for some reason he was in his bed. He was just a shell of himself. I don't even know if that's like the right expression to use, but I'm going to stick with it. He was barely coherent. He just had no life in him. He was so drained. He looked very pale. He looked like a Victorian like sick child. Like the trend of like my boyfriend sleeps like a Victorian sick child. Like that's what he was looking like. Except I've never seen him like that before. He looked fucking horrible. He was slurring his words really poorly. Like I could not understand him. I get home, I'm excited. Like I packed my little weekend bag already, and I was waiting for my grandmother to pick me up, and I didn't have a phone, and I don't think we even had a clock in our apartment, so I was like looking at my alarm. There wasn't a clock in the living room, so I had to keep like running back to my bedroom to like look at the clock to see what time it was. And I was supposed to get told by my father when his mom was going to be there to pick me up, but he was so out of it that he actually gave me his phone. And I was sitting in the living room. He knew that I was in the he knew I was in the living room, but he was in his bedroom, and he kept calling me into his bedroom. And he gave me his phone, and I remember being really pissed because he had a password on his phone that he never told me, and this was part of the reason why I could never call my mom, because even when I had access to his phone, I couldn't use it. Well, the password was just the last four digits of his phone number, and I was so mad when I found that out. But anyways, he gave me his phone, he unlocked it, and he told me to delete files. He needed help deleting files. He has never asked me anything like that. He's never even given me his phone before without it already calling my mom. So I'm just like, what? Like, files? And he's like, blah, 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 like, not talking, just making noises. And he's barely holding his arm up trying to point to something on his phone. But eventually his arm is just not like fully extended in the air, like his elbow is on the bed, but he's just like pointing up with his pointer finger at nothing. Like I was initially holding his phone near his face, and it's just like his eyes were blinking shut. He was breathing out of his mouth. Like he didn't look good. So I took his phone. I would fuck with it, give it back to him. I would leave. A couple minutes later, he would yell for me to delete the files off his phone. Still had no idea what it was. So eventually, I got sick of going back and forth because I did that a couple of times already where I tried to do what he was asking me and I didn't know, like, it wasn't working. So I eventually gave up. I just took his phone. I got the text that my grandmother was here. I double checked. She was outside. I tossed him his phone. I don't think I gave him a hug because I didn't really like to touch him. I never really liked to hug my father, so I don't see why this would be any different. Definitely didn't give him a kiss because I didn't like to do that. Just said bye, and I'll probably said like see you tomorrow or something or whatever. Get picked up, see the movie. It's crazy. I don't even remember watching the goddamn movie. I remember watching it with my sister. I do not remember watching it in theaters. It's Saturday. Nobody's answering. My grandmother is calling Jim, not answering. No one can get a hold of Jim. Now, I say that he is probably drunk sleeping. And the look on some of my family members' face when I said that, they were like, no, nah, he's not, he's probably just enjoying not having to worry about you. And mind you, this is Jim's family's first time seeing me since we moved out of my grandmother's house. So the whole time me and him are living alone together for the first time, they've never saw the apartment. They never saw him because I just came outside. They hadn't seen me in a couple of months. So I'm telling them like he's probably like knocked the fuck out. I didn't swear yet, but he's probably passed out. It's whatever. I used to live at my grandmother's house, so I just sleep over until Sunday. Now, obviously, I'm supposed to be going to school on Monday. Nobody's answering again. They're calling him, not answering. So my uncle just decide it's time to just go over to the apartment. We get there, we go upstairs. The apartment door is opened. Not all the way open. It's cracked open, but it's unlocked and opened. My uncle walks in. He doesn't let me walk in. We're standing outside the apartment in the hallway for a little bit. Eventually, my grandmother and I go back to the car. We're in the car for a long ass time. Eventually, my uncle comes back down. Don't know how long he was up there for. We drive to the police station. My uncle goes into the police station. We leave without my uncle, so my uncle stays at the police station while me and my grandmother go home. We'll go back to her house. Don't remember how long we were at her house for, but at least an hour we were at her house with no word from my uncle yet. No word from Jim either. It was common for me to make my grandmother coffee when I lived there. I knew exactly how to make it. So I figured I'd be nice and I would make her a cup of coffee. As I was about halfway from her door, she meets me at the halfway point and she tells me that Jim died. We immediately hug and I start to cry. She was already crying. Surprisingly, I did not drop the hot ass cup of coffee, but we were crying for two different reasons. She was crying because she just lost her son, and I was crying because I was relieved that it was over. Which a decent amount of people know that Jim died, that my father died. A lot of people know how young I was. I had just turned 10 because that selfish bastard had to die 3 days after my birthday. My 10th birthday. So my first double digit, I'm double digits for the first time. My birthday is the 4th of October. He died the 7th. So he died 3 days after my birthday. Like I said, we were crying for very different reasons. It's hard to put into words how happy I was, because at this time my mom had another baby and my sister was already 1 year old at this point, and I haven't really been able to see her because I couldn't. So everything after this kind of happens really fast. Like, they were trying to figure out where I was going to go, because my mom and my stepdad, reoccurring character, he's back, my sister's father, they were still somewhat settling into their new apartment, and my grandmother couldn't take me, but because of the situation, the courts and police had to basically just determine that my mom could handle me living with her and her having full custody of me. So the funeral happens, all that. Uh, I move in. I believe I started at my new school maybe like a month and a half after Jim died, because like it took a little bit for my mom to sign me up, and they gave me like a grieving period and all that, an adjustment period as well, because I went from living with just him to living with, 3 other people that I haven't lived with. I never had I never had to live with a baby, like my own, like flesh and blood sibling before, so that was an adjustment. But yeah, after he died, I finally got to live with my mom. I got to live with and truly meet my baby sister, because of course I met her soon after she was born, but it didn't really feel like it, because I only saw her for, the weekend, and it was hard to enjoy my time because I knew what I had to go back to. So soon after he died, according to my mom, actually, she was contacted by like either a detective or somebody that was just working Jim's case, and the person asked her if she knew why there were so many Bacardi bottles in the apartment. And when she told me that, I was like, "Oh my god, they found it." Like I remember not being like excited, but kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. Just an aha moment. Like, I told you so. Like, not necessarily to my mom, but to everybody, that he was still an alcoholic, that he never quit drinking. And I didn't know that she got spoken to about that until like years later. I just think she thought I was maybe too young and it was too fresh to tell me. But whenever she told me, I remember like tearing up, because like no one fucking believed me that he was still drinking. Like, a lot of this could have been avoided if people just trusted me when I said that he was just a bad person. But I still don't even know what the official cause of death was. I'm assuming it was like alcohol poisoning, or like the side effects of alcohol with diabetes. Like, I'm assuming it's that, but I don't know what the official like ruling was, I guess. Like, I don't know what the official cause of death was. I'm just assuming it was alcohol related, because how could it not be? But yeah, I'm glad my dad died. If it wasn't for him dying when he did, I wouldn't have been able to meet and live with my baby sister when I did. I probably would have never met the person I'm with today, my boyfriend. I would not have went to the school that I went to. I loved the school that I went to. It set me up for the career that I have now, my full-time job. And I don't think the way Jim would have been able to handle my preteen and teen years would have done good for me. I don't think Jim would have raised me to be the person that I became. To conclude, that is why I am happy that my dad died. Thank you for listening to Surrounded by Addicts. Remember to take life one day at a time and to enjoy the little things in life. Stay tuned for the next episode.